Bye, babe.
Bye, babe.
I'll see you at work tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
All right. What's up, bro? Yeah, I missed your call. Lois is over here. Yeah, we're working on an exclusive story for Sweeps Week. Yeah, no. We're still going strong. Yeah, it'll be 3 months this weekend, actually. Yeah. No, I know it's crazy. No. She still has no idea. Yeah. Bro, I saved her like 13 times. It's crazy. No. I'm telling you, it's the glasses, bro. No, you don't
Hey,
be believing
babe.
when
Sorry. Left my charger in your room. Oh, my.
I gotta call you back. All right, welcome to Tait's Take. If you're new here, today we're doing a spoiler-free breakdown of the new James Gunn Superman. If that's something you're into, hit that subscribe button for your boy. From our regular Taste Takers, let's make like Snoop Dogg and get our Krypton. Get it? I said Krypton because it's like Krypton, like a Kryptonian, and Krypton like Snoop Dogg because he's gang affiliated. Duh, never mind. Okay, not so quick background here. Our agenda. First, I want to talk a little bit about the origins of Superman. Then I want to talk about some of the Superman movies of the past. Then I'll get into James Gunn's Superman and how we got there. Is that cool? Cool. Superman was originally created back in 1933 by two teenagers from Cleveland, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. And would you believe that the first Superman was a bald homeless dude named Bill Gunn? And he wasn't even a good guy? Yeah, in their OG version, this Bill Gunn dude was tricked by a mad scientist to take some drug that turned him into a telepath that could see the future. So Jerry and Joe will go around town trying to sell this idea to any newspaper that would listen. Obviously, all the newspapers were like, if you don't get the fuck out of my face with this shit, an evil mind reader. So these two dudes was like, okay, let me think. We gotta go back to the drawing board. They switched up Superman's whole flow. In their new version of Superman, his powers still came from a lab, but instead of making him a telepath, they decided to make him have super strength and be bulletproof. And of course, now he was a good guy. It wasn't until the late 30s where Superman would get his iconic cape and S on his chest. It was June 1938 where Superman would make his comic book debut in the first issue of Action Comics. Since then, to probably nobody's surprise, Superman has sold more comic books than any other superhero ever. Beyond the comic books, Superman has taken on many forms, the first of which being in the 1940s where they made this Superman radio show for kids. Honestly though, I can't even imagine telling a kid from today that their entertainment is going to come from the radio. The way that they will burn this whole place down. Anyway, to get from Superman radio shows in the 1940s to James Gunn's Superman filmed in IMAX in Cowboy Carter's year of 2025, we go through a lot, from stage plays to animated TV shows to live action shows, live action shorts, and of course, some other live action feature-length movies. Of course, none of them more famous than 1978 Superman, starring one of the top 3 Chris's of all time. Me and Biggie included, Christopher Reeve. Top 3 Chris of all time right now, but before this movie, Christopher Reeve was a relatively unknown actor. These folks went through hundreds of auditions. As that process dragged on, that's when they realized, hey, we should go for an unknown actor. And honestly, before they got to Christopher Reeve, the list of names that DC approved to audition for Superman is so crazy. I'm going to drop some of the names. None more crazy than the last one I'm about to say. Okay, Dustin Hoffman, Al Pacino, Robert Redford, Burt Reynolds, Patrick Wayne, freaking John Wayne's son. I didn't even know this dude had a son. Bruce Jenner. And last but not least, well, last on my list, Muhammad Ali. I'm sorry, what? I beg your pardon? Like, y'all already knew that? Muhammad Ali as Superman, that would have been so iconic. The white rage that would have erupted, that's the real movie magic. Funny enough, the Superman and Muhammad Ali comic book issue would release the exact same year as the movie. It's funny how these things work out sometimes. Anyway, long story long, Christopher Reeve is cast as Superman. It goes on to make over $300 million at the box office, the 7th highest grossing film of the decade. But more important than that, it changed how superhero movies were made forever. Christopher Reeve went on to make 3 Superman sequels. I think people liked the second one, kind of hated the third one, and pretend that the fourth one never existed. The point is, his legacy was set in stone. You probably know how the Christopher Reeve story goes. A mixture of tragedy and honestly, world-shifting inspiration. They made a movie about his life last year called Superman, the Christopher Reeve story. I watched it on a plane not long ago. Man, listen. The girl sitting next to me probably thought I was allergic to Biscoff cookies the way I was in there sniffling. They should have called that shit super freaking heavy. Honestly, I can't recommend that movie enough, but I'm telling you, you will feel the feelings. The craziest part about that whole movie, I'm going to go on a tangent here. The craziest part about that whole movie is when Christopher Reeve's son explains that with his dad's accident, if he would have landed a half inch in one direction, he would have got up and laughed about it. And if he would have landed a half inch in the other direction, he would have died instantly. The human body is so freaking insane. Anyway, after Superman 4, it will be almost 20 years until Superman would return to the big screen. In 2006, we got Superman Returns. That one was directed by Bryan Singer. At this point, he had already famously brought us X-Men and X2. Shout out Nightcrawler for the most iconic opening of a superhero movie of all time. Our Superman this time around will be played by Brandon Routh, who also, funny enough, previously auditioned for the lead in Smallville. Overall, though, Superman Returns did make a lot of money, but it also cost a lot of money. And even though it got decent reviews, the sequel never took flight. Well, let's fast forward to 2013, where we have the birth of the the DCEU. Enter Man of Steel. Honestly, there is nothing that anyone could tell me to make me not love this movie. I know it's a very polarizing film in the superhero movie world, but that's mine, and I'm a stick beside him. Now, I'm not so crazy and diehard running around like that's my Superman and like trying to boycott this new movie on behalf of Zack Snyder. First of all, James Gunn and Zack Snyder are homies. James Gunn reached out to this dude about making this movie, so you guys need to just relax. But I've loved Man of Steel since it came out. It's by far the best movie in the DCEU. I mean, it's not even close. I guess after that, I would say Zack Snyder's Justice League, then maybe Batman v Superman. I don't know. I also like Birds of Prey, and I think everybody hated that. So who even knows if you should trust me? Whatever. I love Henry Cavill. I love Man of Steel. Over $670 million at the box office. The highest grossing Superman movie of all time, but whatever. For whatever reason, we never got a Man of Steel 2. But the successor to Henry Cavill was in good hands. Enter James Gunn. In October of 2022, it was announced that James Gunn would be co-CEO of the new DC Studios. The same James Gunn who famously made Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy series. So this is huge news for a number of reasons. Not only do you have this very popular Marvel guy coming over to DC, you also have our writer-director who is now an executive. This was finally the end of the DCEU. It was a sloppy end, but an end nonetheless. James Gunn taking over, we now have the DCU. The first chapter of projects under James is called Gods and Monsters. The first film from this collection of movies is Superman. Of course, the next question to answer would be, who plays Superman? Now, unlike in 1978, James Gunn wasn't opposed to hiring a big-name actor, but he knew that if he didn't find the right guy, he wasn't making this movie. Naturally, they auditioned tons of people to play Superman, but in the end, it came down to 3 people. David Corenswet, who of course is our Superman, Tom Brittney, and Nicholas Hoult, who ended up being our Lex Luthor. Which, two things. Did you know that Nicholas Hoult was also a finalist to play the Batman? Yeah, the one that Robert Pattinson got. Imagine you're so close to playing two of the biggest DC heroes. And I guess that leads me into my next point. Because like everyone always says how nice and professional Nick Hoult is to work with. And I believe that. But you gotta believe that there's just a little extra motivation in him not getting the role of Superman, getting Lex Luthor, and then bringing that to set where in the movie, Lex Luthor is 1000% obsessed with Superman and how he feels inferior. It's funny how these things work out. Okay, so we got our Superman, we got our Lex Luthor. Obviously, we need our Lois Lane, which also came down to 3 finalists, starting, of course, with Rachel Brosnahan, who is indeed our Lois Lane. But that left us with 2 of my homies. Ugh, I hate to see it. I wish you could just cast everybody. First up, Emma Mackey from Sex Education, my heart. Then Your Grace herself, Phoebe Dynevor from Bridgerton. Oh man, that would have been good. Huh? I mean, they all probably would have been good, but those 2 are my homies. Like 2 Netflix homies. Anyway, we'll get you in the DCU, I promise. James Gunn, get these girls into the DCU. Okay. So we got our main 3 cast members. We got James Gunn writing and directing. What's the story? James Gunn said he was adamant about not making another Superman origin story. I mean, we done seen it a million times. Superman's home planet of Krypton is about to blow up. His parents slingshot this dude to Earth, and he lands in Kansas. Ugh. He gets raised by the Kents, grows up to be a journalist working for the Daily Planet, all while saving the world as Superman, and nobody's the wiser. That's the same dude. Nobody except his sugar plum Lois Lane. So here in this movie, we jump into a world where not only is Superman not the only superhero, but we're in a world where superheroes have already existed for quite some time. Superman's been out here Supermaning for 3 years, and he's already been dating Lois for 3 months. Congrats, you 2. James Gunn wanted this movie to feel like you just opened up a comic book and jump right in. This is one of the reasons why I think that the comic book heads are really going to like this movie. And not all comic book movie creators be reading the comics. Like James Gunn literally learned how to read reading comic books. This dude is about that comic book life. He also made it clear that this movie's biggest comic book influence is All-Star Superman. This is a comic book series that came out about 20 years ago. It was written by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely. Okay, the super short synopsis of that story is that Superman flies a little too close to the sun trying to save some astronauts, which was really just an evil plan by Lex Luthor. Now, even though Superman gets his power from the sun, that shit just got too crazy. You know, you can't have too much of a good thing. And he did get more powerful, but essentially it gave Superman a form of cancer where his cells just couldn't handle it. So the theme of the comic book is Superman going around preparing the world for life without him. Honestly, that shit already sounds fire, and I might have to read my first comic book. Okay, even though James Gunn's movie is a whole different story than the one I just explained in All-Star Superman, it was still their guiding light. He assigned this comic book to all the cast and crew, literally gave these dudes homework. They're looking at the design choices, the colors, the shapes, the lines, even some of the character choices. James loved the idea that Lex Luthor was this gifted scientist and inventor. And he loved the idea that Superman was not unbeatable and that he needed people around him. So anyone who's familiar with that comic will for sure see the parallels with this movie. And that's just a little background. Yeah, that's just a little peek in. Okay. All right. Plot time. Okay, so if this Superman movie was inspired by All-Star Superman, but it's a different story, what is the story? All right, so boom. This is basically a story about international affairs and defamation of character. Basically, Superman gets in the middle of some foreign conflict. Some foreign conflict that appears strangely similar to some foreign conflict here in our real world. Anyway, because Lex Luthor ain't never been nothing more than a snitchy McRat, he pulls up on the U.S. government. He's like, don't you think it's a little crazy that Superman thinks he can go over there and just end foreign conflicts because he feels like it? Of course, now the U.S. government is conflicted. They're like, let me think. Because honestly, no one likes getting in the middle of some foreign conflict like we do. But Superman ain't really one of us. And he's stopping invasions that happen to be led by some of our closest allies. You see the connection? You see? We don't got to name no names. Anyway, at the same time that Lex Luthor's trying to convince the U.S. government that Superman must be stopped, he's also trying to convince the world that he might not be here on Earth for the right reasons. So can Superman save the world from danger cooked up by his enemies and get the people back on his side? Or did that Lex Luthor smear campaign do damage that was irreversible? And now we got a movie. So what's my take? Okay, just give me a second. Let me try to... Okay, just bear with me for a second. You know what this movie is like? Okay, you know how people say that dating today is terrible? They hate the apps. People be ghosting all the time. Imagine you in the dating pool today. I know. All you guys are in very serious, loving, committed relationships. Just try to humor me for a second and pretend that you're single. Sheesh. Okay, pretend you're in the dating pool. And in this example, you date guys. You match with a guy on the apps. He messages you right away. He even says something that proves that he read your profile. Doesn't go back and forth too much. He's like, hey, let's get some drinks. The day before the date, he texts you and confirms that you are indeed still on for said date the next day. The date comes. He's only 5 minutes late. You know how the trains be. He even pulls out your chair. The conversation is fine. He has a job. He even asks you at least 2 questions. The check comes. You offer to split it, even though he had 3 drinks and you only had 1. He says, no, it's okay. You can pay for the next one. You say, oh, there's going to be a next one? He says, maybe. He waits for your Uber. He even opens the door for you. When he opens the door, he tells the Uber guy, hey, get her home safe. When you get back to your apartment, you call your homegirl who's been waiting all night for the debrief. You tell her, girl, I think he's the one. Honestly, if you're still even watching this video, y'all probably like, Tate, what the hell does that have to do with Superman? The point I'm trying to make is the DCEU has been so bad for so long that the bar is in hell. And any semblance of normalcy in a DC film is going to feel like the best date you ever been on because you've been dating duds. See? Told you I would get there. I'd be taking the long way. Like, just to be more specific, though, I did enjoy this movie. It's not the epic I would have wanted, and the trailers didn't lead me to expect an epic, but you never know. So I'll spend a little time talking about some of the things that I liked and some of the things that I didn't like. Okay, things that I liked. First things first, David Cornsweet as Superman. This dude is Superman. I think he did an excellent job. This got to be Superman in his purest form. Well, the purest form in a long time. You're rooting for him the whole time. You always want to see him on the screen. You believe in the goodness that he's fighting for. You just believe it. I remember watching Twisters, and I was like, I already see it. This dude, David, just seems like a super nice guy and extremely humble. He even said he thought this was a role he never thought he could get. He knew there was a ton of people auditioning, and he knew that he was small. When he got the role, he was 6'4", 195 pounds. James Gunn literally told him, and I quote, just work on your shoulders and your vulnerability. Okay, remember the part like 5 seconds ago where I said David Cornsweet was 195 pounds? Yeah, this dude filmed Superman at 240. Yeah, he worked out with Hollywood trainer Paolo Meschidi. They were working out 5 to 6 times a week. David was eating up to 4,500 calories per day. So, yeah. The idea was to make him bulk up, but not get too shredded. They were really trying to lean into this, like, buff Kansas farm kid thing. Freaking nailed it. In the movie, though, you can't not love this version of Superman and Clark Kent. David said he was working to capture this idea that Superman really loves what he does. He doesn't carry it like a burden, but that there is a loneliness to it. He can't relate to anyone and no one can relate to him. I have no notes for how he played Superman. And again, as someone who never read the comics, I have no choice but to believe those fans will love this. it's also probably the closest portrayal to what Christopher Reeve did. So if you like that, you know. Next cast standout is Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane. Now, of course, I love those other two finalists, but I mean, this is Lois Lane. I walked away thinking this girl, Lois Lane, is a real journalist. I think James Gunn was trying to really show us like, oh, no, she takes the craft seriously. At the end of the movie, I was like, this was less about their love and a lot about how differently they see the world. There's a scene in the movie where she's interviewing him as Superman. They show some of this in the trailer. I just think this is one of the best scenes in the whole movie. It gave us such a good look into how their relationship probably is on a daily basis. Then to round out our big three, I think Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor was excellent. Another low bar coming from Jesse Eisenberg, who we love as a person, but collectively hated as a Lex Luthor. I don't even think they gave this Lex Luthor the best lines, but it's one of those things where it's like, you're kind of saying some stupid stuff, but I'm believing it because you really tapped in to this character. Like hearing that he auditioned to play Superman, I'm like, bro, you the most Lex Luthor thing of all time. And you really believe that he hated Superman on a deep, like, ideological level. Oh, and he was also extremely obviously playing a version of Elon Musk. So, okay, and also after those three, even though he's bad as fuck, you can't not love Crypto the dog. And did you know that that's actually James Gunn's real dog, just made white in the CGI? Don't say I never taught you nothing. Okay, a couple things that I did not like about the movie, starting with his superhero friends. I thought Nathan Fillion as the Green Lantern was probably the best one. Isabella Merced as Hawkgirl was easily forgettable. And Eddie Gathegi as Mr. Terrific, he sounded like a white actor that they told to sound like a black actor, but a black actor from the 1970s. I just couldn't understand why he was talking like that. Like, he had some cool scenes, but I can't get down with a firefight scene then you call someone a jive turkey. I also didn't love how they portrayed Clark's parents, John and Martha Kent. Normally when you see the Kents, of course, they from Kansas, so they from Kansas. But they're always like nice, kind-hearted, but also wise folks, especially John Kent. Here, it was kind of like they told him to act borderline moronic. I will say later in the movie, they do seem to evolve, but for most of it, I'm like, these two people raised their kid to be a journalist. All in all, what's most important is that I think this movie is definitely worth seeing. It's definitely worth seeing in the theaters, and it's definitely worth seeing in the biggest theater you can find. It's far from perfect, but I think, not to sound cliche, but I think this is a love letter to Superman fans and a love letter to comic book fans. Give you a quick example here. I heard someone ask a fan the other day, which movie is better, The Dark Knight or The Batman? And this dude was taken aback. He's like, okay, The Dark Knight is the better movie, but The Batman is the better Batman movie. And that's kind of how I feel about this movie and Man of Steel. I prefer Man of Steel as a movie. I always liked the darker, more grounded stuff. But I think you will be hard-pressed to disagree with me that this is not the better Superman movie. You know, this is a movie like James Gunn wanted. It feels like you're reading a comic book. This is a movie that feels like Superman, the animated series. If you grew up with that shit like I did, you gonna feel the feels. Imperfect storyline or not, it's never gonna get old rooting for someone who just wants to do good in the world. Especially at a time like this, when people on the news are reporting stuff like this.
I don't know. We don't go to the movie theater to be lectured to and to have somebody throw their ideology onto us. I wonder if it'll be successful.
You know what it says on his cape? MS-13.
Oh, word? I could have sworn that Superman was an illegal alien. Yeah. Like, an illegal alien that our president would certainly try to deport back to Krypton if it didn't get blown to smithereens. And since it got blown to smithereens, I'm sure he would try to send that dude to El Salvador. Listen, I don't need to drag this, but honestly, be fucking for real. This is the same Superman that's been fighting for good since he was created. The same Superman that was invented by the sons of immigrants, the same Superman that took on the KKK in the 1940s, the same Superman that went back in time to help Holocaust survivors. It's just exhausting. Look, their whole angle is when you go woke, you go broke. So it would be a real shame if you guys went out there and bought a ticket to see The Man of Steel this weekend. Just be a real bummer. It's a real bummer if this thing made a lot of money at the box office, you know? Superman is available exclusively in theaters today, July 11th, which also, funny enough, happens to be James Gunn's dad's birthday. So shout out to him. Oh, apparently it's also a huge friend of the channel's birthday. So shout out to you, Emily, on your big day. What we don't do here at Tait's Take, what we would never do here at Tait's Take, is miss a bad bitch birthday. So enjoy your day, enjoy your weekend, and don't eat all the damn birthday cake because you know you're supposed to share with Alice. Sheesh, don't be so damn greedy. Anyway, you have a very nice friend that wanted me to tell you happy birthday. And you might also have some Tait's Take merch coming your way. And you better wear that shit. So let me do my little ending thing. As always, thanks for checking out Tait's Take. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like and that subscribe button. In the comments, just let me know what you thought about the movie. Are you a fan of the DCEU? Are you a fan of Man of Steel? What's your favorite Superman movie? What's your favorite superhero movie? Are superhero movies back? Were they ever gone? Thanks for the time, y'all. Peace. Okay, you know what's crazy? Is that most people growing up watching Superman, they're like, honestly, how does anyone not know that Clark Kent is Superman? And yeah, I mean, it takes people a lot, to get over that. But really, in the comics, his glasses are hypno glasses. So when he wears them, like at work and shit, they're not seeing what we're seeing. They're seeing like a slightly distorted version of Clark Kent. So James Gunn said in this movie, he is indeed wearing hypno glasses. Just something to think about. I got a lot of nuggets